Welcome to a brand new episode of the UFO Show. In this installment, we learn former President Barack Obama is hiding UAP info in his library. We find out when we'll be getting some precious samples from Mars. And we meet a professor with a very wild theory about extraterrestrials. Let's get to it. When it comes to the subject of UAPs, we all probably suspect the government isn't telling us everything they know, even as they slowly become more transparent on the issue. We have to believe plenty of big shots have taken startling information about extraterrestrials to their graves, and that's including former presidents of the United States. But one ex-president might have more goods than any of them, and said goods might just be sitting in his own presidential library. That would be President Barack Obama. Obama, you may recall, has been a bit coy on the subject of aliens before. But he also seems just as open-minded as the rest of us about the possibility of intelligent life in the universe, and has acknowledged that some of the footage we've seen, and perhaps some footage that only a handful of people have seen, is inexplicable. Obama has been a good sport about the topic, but what does he really know? And when, if ever, will that knowledge be revealed? Well, there's some good news and some bad news on that front. First, the good news. UFO expert John Greenwald has made it his life's mission to uncover hidden government documents using the Freedom of Information Act, which has successfully prompted the unsealing of documents the world might not have seen otherwise. He recently sent a FOIA to the Obama Presidential Library, which unsealed presidential records from his administration 4 years after he left office, as is custom. Thank you for watching the UFO Show, and I ask that if you enjoy our shows, subscribe to our channel right now, like this video, and click on the bell so you can be notified each time a new video goes up. Now back to the show. Greenwald naturally asked for documents pertaining to UAPs and the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, and anything tied to that subject. To his surprise, the response Greenwald received went something like this: approximately 3,440 pages and 26,000 electronic files of records that potentially revolve around UAPs. That's a lot of info. Naturally, the library didn't go into much detail regarding these files, as apparently they're still processing all of the FOIAs they've received since the presidential documents have been unsealed. But still, pretty cool news, right? Well, sorry to rain on this parade, but it might be a while before we see what's in those files. Greenwald asked when he might be able to see the files, and the response was approximately 16 years. Yep, as Greenwald said on Twitter, this took the wind right out of his sails. Still, Greenwald admitted he was absolutely floored when he found out the Obama Library has that many documents related to UAPs. It might not amount to a ton, and Lord knows we're not exactly marking our calendars since it's probably not possible to buy a 2038 calendar just yet. But we can hope against hope that the info is released much sooner than that. Greenwald even called on UAP true believers in Congress, like Kirsten Gillibrand and Mark Rubio, to help expedite the release of the files. Let's hope it gets done. Maybe we can get Obama on this case as well? Speaking of waiting, and we're not trying to be bummers during this edition, folks, but it looks like we're going to have to give some time to the Mars rover Perseverance to send its samples back to Earth for research. Originally, the plan was for the rover to launch its dozens of Mars soil samples, which could provide insight into whether or not life ever truly existed up there, back to Earth in 2026. A long and complicated process, the samples wouldn't get back to the planet until 5 years later, 2031. But now, in the name of getting the job done right, the mission has been delayed a couple of years. Now, we'll be getting those samples back in 2033, if all goes well. How does this work? In the simplest terms, we can lay it out. In 2027, NASA will launch a sample-returning lander carrying a Mars ascent vehicle and a European Space Agency-built fetch rover toward the Red Planet. The fetch rover would pick up a container holding Perseverance's samples and bring them back to the ascent rover, which would launch them into Mars orbit. Up there, the sample container would be transferred to an Earth return orbiter, which will then bring the material back to Earth in 2033. Obviously, not the easiest of missions, but at least NASA is planning ahead. The samples are being collected on the floor of the Mars crater known as Jezero, which was once the home of a lake and river delta some billions of years ago. Those samples could very well tell us if Mars was the home planet for some kind of life. And of course, learning that info could lead us to answering questions that have been posed for hundreds of years. So the secrets of Mars will just have to wait a little longer. But fear not. As long as Perseverance is up there, there is no telling what it might stumble or roll upon next. We just have to be patient. After all, what's a few more years at this point? We've highlighted our share of out-there theories in the past. Some of them a little more plausible than others, but this one might be the strangest of them all. And while you might hesitate to believe in it, you might want to take a moment and wonder, do I really know who my friends and neighbors are? Meet Dr. David Jacobs, a retired history professor at Philadelphia's Temple University. Dr. Jacobs taught history at the school for around 40 years, but he also taught something a little less by the book, UFO studies. In addition to teaching the history of UFO sightings and the general attitudes towards the phenomenon, Dr. Jacobs would share stories from alleged alien abductees he'd interviewed, upwards of 150 subjects in fact. One of the shocking conclusions Jacobs reached would have pretty immense consequences for humanity if true. Aliens live among us. They've integrated themselves into our society, and they're paving the way for an eventual takeover of the entire planet. You'd better start checking items off your bucket list right away. Dr. Jacobs' long-held theories are once again in the spotlight thanks to his appearance in a new UFO documentary called Extraordinary: The Revelations. Extraordinary would be one way to put the good doctor's theory. As he has it, just as humans have spread out across the globe and taken as many resources as possible, aliens are doing the same thing across the universe. Quote, "We have spread around the world and conquered as much as we can. We don't know whether this is true of other beings or not, but it certainly is true of what humans have done. My best guess, and this is a guess, is that yeah, they're doing the same thing. This is what they do, just like us." The way to successfully colonizing the Earth is to send human-like aliens to live amongst us. But they're also puppeteering the human abductees with mind control to do their bidding. Many of the hypnotized subjects Jacobs talked to independently mentioned crowd control to him, meaning their jobs would be to herd panicked humans towards a final destination. Dr. Jacobs has been talking about this subject for years and has a website, ufoabduction.com, dedicated to his research and theories. One area Jacobs appears to be heavily interested in, human-alien hybrids. Indeed, on his website, you can see that Jacobs has heard tales of these hybrids interacting with humans. Sometimes these interactions are sexual in nature, while other times abducted men and women are made to have intercourse in order to retrieve sperm samples. Abductions are getting raunchier with every passing year. Well, look at it this way. If those Obama UAP files get unlocked soon, perhaps Dr. Jacobs will find himself comforted by the revelation that everything he's been saying is indeed true. That won't be so comforting for the rest of us, however, if we're going to be herded into the arms of a randy hybrid. That's it for now, folks. The truth is out there, somewhere, and we're going to be keeping an eye on things for all you true believers. And if you have anything to share with us, don't hesitate to send us an email at ufoshow@joeblow.com. We're eager to hear from all of our fellow UFO and outer space enthusiasts. Also, please share your thoughts and any cool extraterrestrial news you have in the comments section. Finally, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, as we're going to be your one-stop shop for all things alien going forward. Until next month, keep watching the skies.